Hello and welcome to the Rambler Podcast. My name is Jimmy Smith and I am your host. I am a proud member of the Cathedral Prep class of 2011 and I am the Assistant Vice President of Development and Strategic Initiatives here at Prep. If you are a new listener to the podcast, I just want to say thank you for listening and welcome. On the podcast, the way that we format this is that we release 2 episodes per month. The first episode comes out on the first Monday of each month and features a Cathedral Prep or Villa Maria Academy prominent alum, we'll say. And what we do on that episode of the podcast is we talk about their journey to success. We talk about the leadership experiences that they've had in their career. So that way as a community, we can all learn from them. Whether you went to Prep or Villa or not, the information that they share is very valuable and something we can all learn from. The second episode of each month comes out on the third Monday of the month and will feature a Cathedral Prep faculty member, staff member, or coach. What we do is we talk about their role at Prep and how they serve our students in the school and our community as a whole. So thank you again for listening today. If you find value in today's episode, please feel free to share it to family members, friends, or on social media and tag me or tag Prep so we can go ahead and repost you and we can get the message out about what we're doing here at Prep and the valuable lessons that we can learn from our alum today. So thanks again, and now let's get into today's episode featuring Mr. Tim NeCastro. Hello everyone, my name is Jimmy Smith and welcome to episode number 14 of the Rambler Podcast, where we are passionate about sharing what makes Cathedral Prep the standard of excellence, from highlighting the successes of our Prep or Villa alumni base, as well as highlighting the people who help make Prep great for our students today. On this episode of the podcast, we are thrilled to have Tim NeCastro as a guest. Tim is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Erie Insurance, a role he has held since 2016. Tim joined Erie in 1996, starting a career that has spanned finance, services, and sales. He managed Erie's internal auditing department and was then promoted to Senior Vice President of the Controller Division in 1997. He moved into operations in 2008 as Senior Vice President of the Product and Policy Services Division. He expanded his experience to field sales operations in 2010 when he was promoted to Senior Vice President and Regional Officer. His territorial oversight included Ohio, Indiana, Tennessee, West Virginia, Illinois, and Wisconsin. In 2014, Tim led Erie's entry into its 12th state, Kentucky. Prior to joining Erie, Tim worked for the Plastek Group here in Erie, Pennsylvania as a Director of Finance. He previously worked for 10 years progressing through Senior Manager at Ernst & Young, one of the then Big Five public accounting firms in its Cleveland and Erie offices. Tim is a 1978 graduate of Cathedral Prep and then went on to earn a bachelor's degree in accounting from Gannon University. He serves on the boards of the American Property Casualty Insurance Association, the Insurance Information Institute, UPMC Hammett, and is a member of the Council for the Pennsylvania Society. He is also a founding board member and president of the Erie Downtown Development Corporation's Board of Directors. Tim is married to his wife Lisa, and together they have 5 children. So all that to say, Tim, we're very honored and welcome to the podcast.
It's a delight to be here.
Great to have you. And one of the things I wanted to thank you guys too is I met with Matthew a little bit before and he gave me a tour of the new building, and it is just beautiful. You must be really proud of everyone who came together to make this possible.
Yeah, it was one of those things where we watched it coming together and kind of at the last minute, right as we were ready to complete it, COVID broke out. But it certainly has been a source of pride for us and for our employees, and I hope it is for the city also. It is a beautiful facility. We are getting a lot of demand or interest in seeing the building, and so we're going to arrange some public tours later in the spring and early summertime.
Yeah, no, that is great to have a company like yours investing in the city of Erie. It's tremendous to see, and somebody who's an Erieite myself and has 4 kids, very appreciative to see the investments you guys are making here in our community.
Yeah, it really is. It really kicked off a series of investments. So the building itself, in total, will cost us around $160 million to build.
Wow!
It's 350,000 square feet, and it houses 1,300 employees.
Wow.
It also has common spaces that can accommodate about another 600 people in the building at the same time.
Wow.
So it's quite a facility, And really what it did is it stimulated additional investment in downtown. It was one of the first major projects to occur. Hammett had planned their patient tower. That began to go up. And then what's happened over the past 5 years is those two projects spearheaded this resurgence, and now the city has seen $650 million of real estate investment in downtown.
Wow.
Over the past 5 years, including the COVID years.
Yeah. And it's just tremendous. I mean, I kind of joked by saying in Erie, I remember having plenty of conversations with my dad, and it was just a matter of, will somebody do something? Will somebody do something? And then the last, 5-10 years to see the talks and then the work backing up that talk is amazing to see.
It's really exciting.
Yeah.
You mentioned I'm a prep grad, and it's very gratifying to be an Erieite and to have the role that I play and to be able to influence things like that in the community. I can tell you that it was not on my radar screen in 1978 when I was graduating from prep.
I can imagine so. I'm sure you had big dreams and goals, and maybe that wasn't exactly in the wheelhouse yet.
Yep, that's true.
So speaking of that, you graduated in 1978. Even what was your decision going to prep back then? Why did you decide to be a Cathedral Prep student?
It's kind of a funny story, and it has a little bit of twists and turns to it, so bear with me.
Yeah.
So I'm one of 6 children, and I have 4 brothers. I'm the youngest of the 4 brothers. And for 8 years at grade school, I followed them through grade school, and all I ever heard was, why can't you be more like your brother Tom or Joe or Gerard? They were always did better in school than me, were a little less distracted. I probably was a little bit ADD back in the day, but I never was that academically inclined compared to my brothers. But my mother had her heart set on all of us going to Catholic grade school and Catholic high school, and so I went, and I came from a very small grade school, St. Paul's, and there were only 7 of us from that school that went there, and we compare it to like Our Lady of Peace, where there were 30 kids coming, and those kids seemed to know everybody.
Right.
Our initial experience was kind of scary for us. It was a big institution. We didn't know anybody but ourselves. We weren't, so it took a while to get onboarded. But that was the reason I went. I didn't want to let my mom down.
Yeah.
But again, looking back, very glad that I went, because I learned some things that have served me well up to this day today.
Yeah. No, that's great to hear. And it sounds like there wasn't too much of a decision, because of the influence of your mother and things of that nature.
Yep.
That's really
I was just
awesome.
happy I passed the entrance exam.
Well, and back then, I don't know if exactly during your time, but we had up to 1,200 boys in the building at one time.
Yep.
It was, big deal to go to Cathedral Prep, and it still is today, but we don't have the capacity as we did back then.
Yeah, we had over 350 in our freshman class.
Wow.
The year I started there. It was a big class, so it was intimidating. But then I got to meet different people, and one of the things that I recall about growing up was I always had the benefit of having a role model. My father passed away when I was young. My family was young. I was 7 years old. My mother had a couple of brothers who were successful, and so I had the opportunity to see people succeed who, I could see myself succeeding because they did. And I met more of those people at prep. I learned about that from people at prep. It was predominantly other families. I made friends with people whose parents were successful, or who families who had businesses, and I'm like, why not me?
Yeah.
And it was motivating to me. I didn't feel like I was poor, but I also I knew that I wanted to aspire to do bigger things than get out of high school and get a job and be a laborer. I didn't want to do
right.
that.
Yeah, and I can relate to that as well. I would say, my time at prep, it really enforced having the standard of excellence in all you do. I kind of mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, that's what we're passionate about sharing on this, is that standard of excellence that Cathedral Prep has. And when you're a student, it applies to academics and athletics and extracurricular activities in all the areas. So that's great to hear that helped to motivate you into the track you're on today.
Yep.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's cool is, I lived out of town for about 6 years, and over the years you tend to fall out of touch with your classmates. But you start to come in touch with your values as you get older. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that's really cool is that a group of our classmates get together pretty routinely these days. Mm-hmm. And we always have the invariable stories of things that happened at prep, and they're bigger now than they really were back in the day, of course.
Right, of course.
Everybody does that. But it's really cool that we get together and we have this common bond.
Yeah.
And we're different people. We've all grown into different things. We all have different types of careers. But we enjoy each other's company.
Right.
And I'm better friends with them now than I was at prep.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny how that works out too. Yeah. And I know we just hosted for your class, which affectionately we know you're called the Great 78 is what we've been told.
Self-proclaimed.
Self-proclaimed, yes. We hosted a little class reunion around Christmas time where we were at the Salata Center, the new building at Cathedral Prep. And that was great seeing all your classmates and being able to do that. And I'm curious to get what your impressions were of seeing the new building. I know you came in during the construction phase of it, but then to see the finished product, you got a little bit of a tour of it when you were there.
It was kind of a similar effect when I saw it over Christmas to this building, because when I was in this building, the Hagen building, I thought, we're never going to get done. And when I came and visited the Salata Center, it was late August, and they were talking about, or mid-August, and you guys were talking about, hey, we're going to be back in school in September, and I'm like, this building ain't going to be done. But boy, I'll tell you what a metamorphosis that addition has been. Not only itself, but the impact that it's had on the other areas of the school and the connectivity. There's kind of a logic in the way the school is set out now, where it was kind of felt random when I was there.
Yeah.
But it feels like a world-class facility right now.
Yeah.
I was very proud to be an alum when I came into that building.
Yeah. And I was sharing with Matthew, and he was showing me, giving me the tour, showing me the sites a little bit from this building, and just the appreciation of all the different companies and organizations who have invested in downtown Erie. And he mentioned, Cathedral Prep too, and I'm like, yeah, that's right. We're invested in being here to downtown and to what we're doing with the building and the students. So,
yep.
Yeah.
It's exciting. And look at the event center. I mean, it's unbelievable repurposing of a blighted property.
Yeah.
Something spectacular. Now your neighbors to the west are going to do some things, and hopefully that continues. That's
I drive by there, and there's excavators out there, and they're doing a whole bunch of stuff, so it's exciting to see the growth in the Erie community for sure. Yeah. Now switch gears a little bit, talk about some of the aspects that I would say you mentioned values. As you get older, you kind of start to reflect on those. Just ask you some questions about your career path and things you've been able to accomplish, and some wisdom, as you might say, that you could share with us today. As you see, you read that bio I read off about your ladder to success. One thing I noticed is previously worked for 10 years progressing through senior manager at Ernst & Young. It's easy to say, Tim NeCastro, CEO, look how amazing, but there was a lot of years of hard work and effort that doesn't get unnoticed, and I saw 10 years there. That's awesome, even before you're at Erie. Yeah. Do you have any, I don't want to say specific lessons, but moments in your journey that really made a significant difference for you that helped keep you climbing that ladder?
Yeah, I mean, again, in the moment, I didn't realize these things, but looking back, I realized how profound a couple of things were.
Yeah.
First, the fact that I started in accounting, how that occurred was my two uncles that I mentioned. I have three uncles on my mother's side, and her third brother that I didn't mention is the smartest of the three of them. I hope the other two are listening. But my uncles who were accountants helped me find my way into accounting. I didn't really think I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And then they got me interested in it, and I started to do it, and I was good at it, so it made me more interested in it. And then getting the job at Ernst & Young, I thought I would stay there forever when I got there. I grew up in an era where people didn't change jobs every 3 years. And so I was making my way there, and my life has had influence on that. So one of the profound things that occurred was I had my kids. I had two young boys. The job was grueling. It was very difficult, a lot of travel. And coming in touch with my values, I valued being with my kids more than I did climbing that ladder through Ernst & Young. Yeah. And it was only going to get worse. The more responsibility you got, the more hours you were working. They paid you more money, but they were buying your life. And I was like, this doesn't feel good to me. And so for the sake of my family, I left there. And so one of the valuable lessons was make your life the determining factor in your career decisions, not the other way around. It really gets you upside down if you're chasing a career, and that's your purpose. Your life purpose should be broader than that, and your work should fit into it. I think the biggest learning experience I had, the biggest growth spurt in learning I had was when I went to Plastic. I'm not going to get into all the details. It's a private company.
Sure.
It's run by the Preshak family, 5 of whom attended Cathedral Prep. One of them was my classmate, Dennis Preshak.
Yeah.
We remained very good friends. But when I got to the company, not unlike many fast-growing manufacturing companies, they don't invest a lot in the administration of the business. And so the finance and human resources and technology functions were well underinvested, and we had a lot of work to do to build that out. So when I was with Ernst & Young, I was an auditor. So I would critique companies' accounting practices and their reporting practices. Well, now I'm authoring those practices for a company for the first time. And I realized how challenging it is to be as effective as I was telling people to be when I was in my previous job. Like, hey, this isn't easy. You guys it's easy to make a recommendation. Getting it done is a different ballgame.
Right.
And so it gave me a different level of sensitivity that there are a lot of things you don't know about the other side.
Yeah.
And that's served me very well as a leader, because one of the values that people have is they want to be heard.
Yeah.
And so if you don't take the time as a leader to understand what people are going through, you're never going to effectively lead them.
Yeah.
And so that was a big learning that I got at Plastic. Like, all right, now that I'm doing this, it's very challenging. But I also learned some tremendous technical skills. How do you build an HR function? How do you build a technology function? I'd never done any of those things. And within the first 2 months that I started working there, my boss, the CFO, had a heart attack and was out.
Wow.
And so now I become the acting CFO of the company, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in the fire now.
Yeah.
It was the best learning experience I'd ever had, though, and I to this day I look back on it very fondly, and I get together with the family still. I knew that it was time for me to go. When that job also got to be very challenging for me in a lot of ways. And I wanted to do something different. Manufacturing is a different world.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of try something different. And this is Erie, Pennsylvania. And God bless this city. But people know people. And so one of the accountants I worked with when I was at Gannon and working part-time in Erie before I moved to Cleveland was the controller here at Erie Insurance. And I called them, and within a week I had an interview, and within a week after that they hired me as the head of internal audit.
Yeah.
So I moved into that really popular auditing role again in the company.
Right.
But I mean, there's an experience I had here too that taught me a lot, and it really has to do with action orientation. Leaders, the most effective leaders address problems head on and immediately. They don't defer them. And I had a tendency, I like people. I like people to like me.
Yeah.
And I had a tendency not to hit things as crisply or head on as I needed to. I had a really bad experience with that. I had an employee who was significantly underperforming that I was not addressing it.
Yeah.
And what I realized was the erosion in the credibility I had with the rest of the team, because they saw this and they're like, hey, you're making us hold our weight. This person's not, and you're not doing anything about it.
Right.
So my stock starts to drop in these folks' books, and I realized, all right, as a leader, you have a broader role than just protecting every individual. You got to protect the team. And part of that means that everybody's got to perform, and you have to address underperformance, and you got to do it quickly. And that has served me very well, really, since that point in time. It was a tough experience,
Yeah.
I remember one other thing I want to mention. I'm sorry, I'm rambling on.
No, you're fine.
Back at Ernst & Young in Cleveland, When I moved there, I had worked part-time for a local firm, Root Spitznass and Smiley here in Erie, for over 2 years.
Yeah.
And the experience I had put me really on par with more of a senior person there, not a staff person.
Yeah.
So when I got there, I had received very early accolades. People were kind of fighting to get me on their jobs because I was this whiz kid, right? I walk in the door and I've had a lot of experience, really what amounted to almost 3 years of experience in the firm, because the firm is very methodical and they only give you a little responsibility at a time. The accounts are a lot bigger. Anyways, long story short, the first time I got onto a job, and got a poor performance rating, it really jilted me.
Mm.
And I had to learn, and it didn't learn at that time. I mean, it took me kind of a year after that, because it was everybody else's fault. They didn't understand the work I was doing.
Yeah.
It couldn't possibly be me.
Yeah.
But one of the things I learned later on was, in delivering tough performance messages to people, you have to do it in a way that people are going to receive it.
Mm.
And so, first of all, that assessment I got was on point and was correct with hindsight, but the person did not do a great job of delivering it.
Mm.
He made me feel defensive and confrontational.
Right.
So I've also learned to be constructive in giving people feedback when it's not positive feedback.
Right.
So those are some of the key things that happened along
Yeah.
the way. Obviously, marriage and kids have had an impact on my career and things like that, but those are more of the fundamentals.
Yes. Yeah, and in terms of the career aspect, I can understand that for sure. And one of the things I wanted to go back to on that second point you mentioned was addressing issues or things immediately and not procrastinating. You know, we live in such a digital world today where people are looking for that, I don't want to say affirmation, but, you know, approval and acceptance. Get your posts liked and how many, you know, people see what you're doing. And, you know, to then go from that side of your social life to coming into a position where maybe you want to be a leader or you are a leader, you have to have those hard conversations and you're so used to just wanting people to get to like you. That can be very challenging for people, like you said, you had to face. What advice maybe would you have for somebody who really struggles with the idea of the notion, I want people to like me, and, you know, and it's tough for them to address things like that?
Yeah. I think everybody has a different way to approach it, but I would say get out of the gate early. In other words, you have to set a certain tone, and it doesn't have to be a tough tone. It can be very friendly and approachable, and it should be. But be clear that there are business objectives here we want to get done, and I want you to succeed, and I want you to make me succeed or help me succeed.
Yeah.
So I need you to do these things. I think the clarity of communication about expectations is really important, because then it sets the stage. If you have to go back, you know, either provide very positive feedback. Hey, you're doing everything we set out to do. This is great. Can you do more? I'll give you more assignments.
Right.
Or, hey, this is what we talked about expecting. Here's where you are. Not quite where we need you to be. Can we help you get things moving along here? But if you never set that tone, never set the expectations, it's hard to go back then, you know? And you can still be, you know, quote unquote popular or liked by the people that aren't performing at a high level yet, if you approach the message the right way. Like, we need you here. We talked about you needing to be here. Let's work on getting there.
Right.
Nobody can fault you if you're giving them every opportunity to succeed, and they don't succeed, and they know they aren't succeeding because you've been communicating with them where they are.
Yeah.
They're going to understand that, hey, I'm not going to cut it here.
Right.
Now, we're fortunate to have a company here where I mentioned, you know, I didn't grow up in an era where you change jobs every 2 or 3 years. Well, we have people in the company that change jobs frequently, every 2 to 3 or 4 years, but they never leave the company because there are so many opportunities within the company. You could have 7 or 8 different careers over a 30-year period and never leave the employment here.
Right.
And by the way, you leave with a hell of a pension and a 401k.
Right.
And that, you know, that's heavily matched, and we'll take care of your health care for all that time. I mean, we really feel the people that are here realize, I think, by and large, what a great place it is to work.
Yeah.
But we focus on it. Like, it didn't happen, like, just happened. Boy, Erie's, how did that happen here? It became a great place to work. We were very thoughtful of it. And the thought process really, I guess I'd say this, if you're going to be a leader in the company, you have to share the value system that we have. And the value system starts with people, making people better, and being something that's helping their life be better.
Yeah.
And we're committed to that. We don't, you know, we don't want to lose money. We want to make money as a corporation. We have to, right? But we know that if we start with an objective about money, it's not sustainable.
Right.
If our objective is taking care of people, that will endure any generation. And we have found over the nearly 100 years we've been in business, if we take good care of people, we make plenty of money. We don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of self-fulfilling.
Right. And I have a belief that, you know, when it comes to you're talking about setting those expectations, people have this innate desire to be successful in what they do and be happy and be fulfilled. So when they know where the bar is to be expected of them and they're not meeting it, they know if they're not succeeding, so have that conversation with them and talk to them. But when they have the expectation of this is what we do to succeed and what we're going to do to win as a team, that becomes a lot easier to say, hey, let's pull together and let's figure this out, and the team dynamics and things that you were talking about. One of the things that I noticed going around the tour here was the way that the offices are set up, with the 7 floors that are here. The Erie slogan, what above all in service, that's very different about this corporate building, and I'll share with the listeners, is that all of the VP offices are in the middle of the building, and around the exterior for the windows is for a majority of the workers.
Yep.
That is completely opposite of what one might expect, right? Usually it's the VPs that have the windows and everyone else is in the middle. But that again goes to the testament of above all in service and serving people.
Yep, the servant leadership is really our mantra. That's the style we want our leaders to demonstrate. I'm laughing a little bit because, Jimmy, as I look across the street at our Perry Square building, all those windows you see are VPs' offices.
Yes.
Right? So that's the way it used to be.
Right.
And actually the bridge that connects the 2 buildings was intentional. It was basically saying that is our past, this is our future, and in our future, the more the merrier. We should be sharing the light with more people.
Right.
It's symbolic, but it conveys that sense of concern and putting people first. You're a VP. You're making a bigger salary. You got a lot of responsibility. You need privacy. We're going to put you over here. You don't have a bad office,
right?
But you don't need the window.
Right.
You have plenty of light coming into your office through the window you do have, and your people are happier. So,
right.
And that was the thought process behind the building.
And it's just a small thing to say this is who the company is, and it reflects the leadership in the company that does that. And but yeah, that's funny looking across the street here to
Yep,
see
it's a whole different world over there.
A whole different world. I mean, that was the 1980s that building was built, so a whole different management style, leadership, and things of that nature. So it's great to see how this is now, in today's world. Another question I have for you is, a position like yours, you chase the ladders to success, but I'm gonna guess there's probably also failures in there. Things that you did that unfortunately you weren't as successful as maybe you hoped, and maybe not. But what would you say is your relationship like between failure and success? And how would you maybe give advice to somebody going through a challenging time in their career where they're a little bit frustrated or upset at where they're at, and they want to be successful, but they're not hitting the bar right now yet. They want to go a little bit further in life than where they're at.
Mm-hmm. A couple of things. So first of all, the way I think about failure versus success is different now than it has historically been. I tell our people here, if you never fail, you're not trying hard enough. You're not trying enough things. You're not being bold enough. And then relative to failure, like change it from failure to a learning experience. All right. If you try something and it doesn't work, and you keep trying it, obviously you're not developing, right? You're trying to get a different outcome. It's the Einstein's theory of insanity, trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Right.
So people need to be resilient and understand, I need to pivot. I can't keep trying the same things and hoping for greater success.
Right.
And that takes introspection. You have to determine what's holding you back. Are you not working it hard enough? Are you not studying hard enough? Are you not taking advantage of others' experiences enough? Or do you just really not like this? You're doing it for the wrong reasons. And so there's some subliminal motivation that you don't have because you don't really care that much about it. You're doing it for the wrong reasons. I'd say, to the younger people out there, don't worry about making money. Now your parents are going to go, gosh darn it, I want this kid to make some money. And we do. We all want our kids to make money. But if you start there, kind of like our business, it doesn't work. You could try and find the most high-paying job you can get and hate it, and the quality of your life is terrible. So find something you enjoy doing, and if you do, you're going to find you will figure out how to get better and better at it.
Yeah. And
you'll achieve success. So there's something wrong in the plumbing, if you will. If you're not succeeding, you have to really dig into why that's happening. And if this is your passion, then get up earlier.
Right.
Work harder. If you love golf, get out of bed. Be the first person on that course in the morning. Be the one who's, you see the dew coming off the ball as you take your putt. Don't wait till noon and go out and hit a couple of golf balls and have a couple of beers and hope you're going to play a great round. You're not going to get there.
Right.
I'm talking to myself. Not that right away.
Oh, sorry, I forgot you're on the podcast.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's really a crucial thing. And so, kind of relative to learning, I want people to understand, I set out to do this, I didn't accomplish that, but what did I learn in the process, and can I use that knowledge to try something similar again, but in a different way, or can I even apply what I learned to something completely different that I'm working on?
Right.
And that's where I think you win. It's not a failure at that point. It's been an experience that you've gained from. And it's kind of the methodology that underlies innovation, but people are scared of it.
Yeah.
Why are they scared to fail? Well, because your compensation is based on it, right? Your level of self-esteem is based on how you get rated. But more and more, I think employers are understanding if people are all succeeding all the time, they just can't be pushing it that hard. Their goals aren't aspirational enough.
Right.
And so we need to push ourselves harder. Encourage
the failure, because in actuality, it's a learning experience and opportunities. And you mentioned innovation. I mean, that's where those ideas come from. You put something out there and see if you get some traction with it and make it something. Yeah.
You talk about failings and how do they kind of contribute to being able, how do you get back on the road to success? You got to get over it, all right? And for me, I'd say that I've had a charmed kind of career life up until really trying to figure out where I was going to go after my sales career was going to come to a close. And I had my sights on getting back into finance and becoming the CFO. I was not successful in getting that job. The new president brought in a CFO from the outside. That was a bitter and difficult pill for me. Like, gosh, I'd never, hate to say this, but I'd never interviewed for a job that I didn't get until that happened. And then there were other promotions that occurred that I was overlooked on, and I was like, what is going on? And I kind of felt like I must not have been as successful as I needed to be to rise to that level where I was being looked at as a promotion candidate. And so I had to kind of, again, take a look inward. All right, it's not everybody else's fault. What are you not doing that you could be doing better? Are there different experiences you ought to think about getting? And so it took a while for me to get my footing, get my confidence back. And ultimately what I was able to do was kind of improve my performance in my sales role, and improve it enough that I became a candidate, although kind of a dark horse candidate for this job. I didn't report to the former president, so I wasn't somebody that was like, okay, this is my team, and one of these folks is going to get promoted. I was a layer down, so my boss was on that team. So talk about awkward moments. Went through a little bit of that. No, that's a lot of good stuff right there, and experiences that you had, personally on dealing with that. And kudos to you too, to not tuck your tail and say, I'm going to go work for a different company. They don't see the value in me, forget it. Now, not saying you didn't feel that way inside, but the actions, you said, you know what, let's look inside. Let's figure out what I can do to improve myself to become more valuable. I think the other thing people don't necessarily talk about a lot is there's a value in being competitive, right? In the work world, you have to want to be the best you can be. I think at Erie we do a good job of having people be competitive, but not at the expense of other people. Like, we want them to develop one another, and so a lot of people have found that they are satisfying their competitive urges by helping other people get promoted. And so we have areas of the company where people know, hey, I'm hiring people in. Actuarial is a great example. And this person's going to get experience here, and for 5 or 7 years they're going to do 2 or 3 different functions here, and then they're going to move into underwriting or product. And the company is full of actuaries, former actuaries. And so we have areas like that in the company, and they delight in their provisioning of talent across the organization. That's fantastic. That's a type of competition that they're engaged in. Right. And so, like I said, the real competition for us is outside the doors of the company. But the competitive juices of the employees work in their favor and in the company's favor. We're able to kind of motivate through that. Like, we want you to get promoted. We want you to demonstrate that you are doing a better job at this than your peer group is. That's great. We want to recognize that type of stuff. That's great to hear about the team dynamic you guys have here, that it's a competitive nature, but team-oriented. It's collaboration and what's best for the organization as a whole. Earlier you were talking about, when we were mentioning the failure versus success and looking inward, and one of the things you mentioned was, maybe you're not passionate about what you're doing.
My question for you is, because we addressed the issues of if somebody's failing in what they're doing, somebody like yourself, obviously you've created that passion. I mean, whether you were working at Ernst & Young and you were doing the best you could do, you went to the plastic group, you did the best you could do. It seems like you always had this desire to just continue to improve and build upon what was there and improve it. I guess, the question that I kind of have in that is, what was it that inspired you to be better? Every day, every month, whatever that means to you. But what was it that inspired you?
It kind of started with my upbringing, right? So my family are a bunch of caretakers, right? So my grandmother, I don't think I ever saw my grandmother sit down at the table and eat with us, all right? And then my mother would do the same thing. And so I grew up around people that were helping other people, serving other people.
Yeah.
And so really, to me, it's just been stimulating over my career to be able to touch more and more and more people.
Yeah.
And again, like I said at the onset, I never imagined it was going to be this company or this scope of anything. But I can't be happier that I'm here and that I have the ability to hopefully improve the majority of people's lives that work here. I mean,
yes.
You never get universal acceptance of anything you do.
Sure.
We've had occasions, times we did things to raise the pay of our agents, and they were upset with us for changing the pay structure. Like, you're making more. Like, why are we complaining about this?
Yeah. Check your bank account. You get more money in there.
But to me, that's really, I think, the big motivator. And I remember the process of interviewing for the job and getting the job, and it started to kind of dawn on me, like, all right, why? I asked myself, why did I get this job? And not like because I did this, I said this during the interview kind of thing, but why at a higher level? There's a spiritual aspect to prep, and I don't want to get into a big religious discussion.
Yep.
But I really felt like I was given this responsibility for a reason.
Yeah.
And then two things made it become clear that I did get this for a reason. One is my love for the city and being able to harness the clout and the influence of this organization to help get us on the right track in the city, to start getting us moving in the right direction. And then the second thing was the ability to influence the people's lives here, to make them feel a part of something really special.
Yeah.
And so I realized it was kind of a mission that's been assigned to me. It took a lot of pressure off me, to be honest. Like, all right, you were put here for these reasons. Let's go about executing on those things.
Right.
Because when I first got it, I couldn't figure out. There's so many buttons on an airline. It's like getting into the pilot seat, and you're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
There's so many things here. But it made my framework a lot easier.
Yeah.
And I kind of put it into somebody else's hands, and he's helped me understand where I'm trying to take this thing.
Yeah.
It's been, like I said, it's been a lot easier thinking about it that way.
And I'd say that's just amazing to hear too. With the responsibility at the capacity for the level you're at, to view it from that lens and the work you do. Yes, you got the X's and O's and the technicals on a day-to-day basis that fulfills the mission of a company, but then as the organization as a whole moves forward to impact the city, impact its employees, and to carry the values that obviously you portray to everyone, I'm just very thankful and fortunate that, you're leading this organization, being that Erieite, got 4 young kids that are going to be growing up here, and it's just awesome to see what you guys have started downtown Erie and what's been going on.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
I mentioned we have 5 kids. We have 3 grandkids. Only 2 of our kids live in Erie, and 1 of our grandkids. And so my wife and I have a private goal. We would like to get at least 2 more of those kids back here, and maybe a couple of the grandkids also. And I'd love to see that happen. It may never happen. But what I want to see happen is I want the next generation to want to stay here. I don't want to say it's too late for this or that. There are still people coming back here, and a lot of Erieites that left are coming back because they're seeing, like, oh my God, it doesn't seem like Erie anymore. Okay, I want what's going on now to seem like Erie. I want people to go, wow, I kind of expect Erie to have this stuff going on, and that's the mentality I want to have us create here.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, we get a lot of press at the company for the things that we're doing, but I want to make sure that everybody understands it's a community effort. And so one of the things I think we were uniquely positioned to do was start the activation, and we were able to bring people along because they're like, if Erie's going to do this, we should probably be part of it. It looks like They typically make pretty good choices. So we were able to build really strong coalitions that have helped us move things along.
Yeah.
And I think it has distinguished Erie because Harrisburg looks at us and says, man, this town really has their stuff together. They know what they want. They know what priorities are placed on getting grants. We can work with this. We went for years without getting any state money up here. It was all going to Philadelphia. It's working at the federal level, and we have some notoriety for the work we've done with opportunity zones, even at the White House.
Yeah.
They recognize Erie as one of the top OZ markets in the country. That stuff's unheard of, right? But we've had a lot of people working together to make that happen. I can't tell you the number of people that John Persinger has worked with and learned from.
Yeah.
He and Matt Walker at the time, understanding that legislation and how we could access it. So a lot of work has gone into this. But to me, my focus, because I'm getting older, my focus is not on today or tomorrow. These are building blocks to get to a destination, which is a place that takes care of its community, its members, and people want to come here, and they want to compel other people to come here.
Right.
And I also don't want 1 million people here. I like our small city. I like the fact that it's convenient to get around. I don't want a ton of congestion, but some density and some more fun offerings. Yeah. They're right up our city's alley.
Yeah.
I want to try and find a way to crack the winter nut. Also, they put a small skating rink in the square, but I think we have to come up with some activities that people can do to get them to lean into the winter a little bit more. Yeah. This hibernation has got to end. I mean, I don't know, we start giving out biking helmets or something. Like,
cold. I mean, we're here. Let's embrace it. Let's not complain for 5 months of the year.
Right. It's a long winter if you're just complaining about it.
Yeah. That's hilarious. And one of the things that we were talking about earlier as it pertained to values, and you were mentioning on Ernst & Young, how you could see yourself not wanting to climb that ladder because of the demand on you, preventing you from have time with your children and your family. Being that your position in a company and to influence kind of the direction of that, what advice do you have for a father, a mother that are working careers, and how do you balance that time between you want to be successful in your career, you want to be a good father or mother, you want to be a good husband or wife, but you don't want that career to prevent you from being there for your kids. I guess, you've had a lot of different hats in your time at Erie, obviously CEO now, a lot of responsibilities. How do you balance that?
God, I wish there was a secret formula I could give you for that, because it's hard, and I've been out of balance along the way. I think the key is knowing what the balance is. Start there, all right? So I mentioned a couple of things today. So my work in the city takes a slice of my pie, right? My work at the company takes another slice of that pie. My wife does. I have an elder sister who's handicapped. She gets a slice. The Lord gets a slice of my pie. You know what I mean? And it's not like I'm trying to put. Forgive me, not trying to put him into a compartment, but I know that I want to do certain things to demonstrate my faith. I want to practice my faith. And I know what that balance looks like for me. The hard part is being honest with where you are. If you compare the actual to the ideal, are you being honest with yourself? Right. How's your diet, Jumbo? I have to tell myself sometimes, hey, what's going on here? What happened? A week ago, these clothes fit, now what are you doing? Yeah. So you have to, and the older I get, the more honest I'm able to be with myself. The sooner you can get to that plateau, the better off you're going to be with what that balance represents. And the balance is going to be driven by what your values are. Right? There won't be something that gets a slice of your pie that you don't care about. And if you put it on there because you think it should be there, and you find that every time you look at your balance, you're not feeding it, get it off there. It's not important to you. Right. People clutter their lives with what they think other people think they should do. Right. Or what other people think they should care about. Be yourself. All right. It's okay. Yeah. All right. If you're going to prep, it's really okay. All right.
It's better than okay.
It's better than okay.
That's funny. Yeah, and it's what you were saying. It's everything's driven by your values and what it is that you say is important to you, and let's back that up and make maybe some tough decisions to cut out things. We were talking earlier about the digital age and people wanting to like you. You just said if you're just doing it because you want people to like you, cut it out. Be yourself.
Is that worthwhile?
Yeah.
The other thing that's important is, it's a little bit tricky because being a good parent, what does that mean? many people grow up with an image of a good parent as somebody that's a breadwinner. All right, my dad was a laborer. Okay, he went to work every morning, came home every afternoon. He was a different dad. He had very good domestic skills.
Yeah.
But many of my friends' fathers came home, sat on the couch, had a beer, waited for dinner to be done, yell about a couple of things. They loved their dad. That was his role at that point in time. Parenting roles are different today, and I think we're holding ourselves as parents to have a higher level of interaction and influence on who our kids become.
Yeah.
And less reliance on their friends. Well, they're getting to their friends anyway, so parents, we need to get over ourselves a bit. The kids, their friends are going to have a lot more influence than we do.
Yeah.
But being a breadwinner and providing a good living is important. It provides a solid example and role model for kids. So I mentioned my father passed when I was young. My mother was a waitress. Right? She had a high school degree from Academy High School, a nice woman, hardworking, but that's what I remember about her. My mom went to work. After the day of my dad's funeral, my mother took off the 3 days my father was laid out, and the day of his funeral. The next day she went back to work, and she never said a word about it. She talked about Dad, but she didn't, sit in the corner and cry. She got up the next day. I polished her shoes, and somebody else got her apron, and somebody else did this, and away she went. We would get her ready. She'd work multiple jobs. She'd come home from one restaurant, change uniforms to go to the other place, and we'd get her stuff ready for her. And we'd do that. We'd count her tips out. Hey, Mom, you made $14, and it actually was $13.90. We're trying to get money for ice cream.
Yeah.
We didn't have much money, but my mom always found a way to get us things. But you learn from the things around you. You have to decide where do you want to be? What kind of good parent do you want to be?
Right.
And that can vary. And not everybody can be the let's roll around on the floor and play games parent. Some people aren't that way.
Yeah.
They're so be you.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I got a bloody nose yesterday wrestling with my son. It was a cheap shot, I'll say that too.
Yeah.
I'll put that on record. It was a cheap shot, but yes, that's a constant thing that I'm always thinking about, is that balance of the responsibility, while also not neglecting the family that I have, to give them the best opportunities, being with me, to play and do all those things that a dad does. Because my oldest is 4 right now, and I have a 3-year-old boy. My daughter will be 2 in April, and then a 3-month-old. So I'm in those lean years of you're 5 kids, what it's like, or maybe you've just forgot about it. It's blacked out now.
It's coming back to me. We have 3 grandchildren now, so
there you go.
I remember the era real well.
Yeah. No, but it's something that I always, want to distinguish when having a conversation like this is, yes, we're going to talk about success. Yes, let's talk about leadership, but let's not neglect the side of it on a personal level, how important our families are to us in our careers and our lives.
What do you live in? That's the thing. What are you living for? And you gain self-esteem from doing a good job, having a good career.
Yeah.
Your salary can give you self-esteem. all those things the things you possess. But they're all pretty empty if you're alone. And you could be around a lot of people and still be alone.
Right.
So are you engaged in your life? And what are you trying to accomplish here?
Right.
It's hard. There's a lot of pressure on people.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to think about. But what the hell? It's good to be alive.
Well, and I've got just a couple more questions for you as we wind down, and I'll mention something that you said earlier was the importance of having a role model, and I'm sure we could go on and on about how valuable that is. But to have a role model, somebody that, like you and I, somebody listening to this podcast can get some perspective from yourself. But to have somebody on a personal level that that you can go to and ask questions and get perspective, somebody who's a little bit further in life than you are to bounce ideas off of and reflect on, I think it's a crucial element to your path to not just a successful career, but a successful life. Last couple questions I have for you. One of them being, if there was a message you could get out to the next generation. We've talked about a lot of stuff that this could apply to, but if there was a message you could get out to that next generation, those kids in high school right now, those kids in college, to lessons that you could sit down, you'd want to teach them, some of the most important things. What's maybe just a couple that you would want to impart on them?
I think there are values and behaviors that have stood the test of time. So more than anything, be good people. So be loyal, be true to yourself. Be honest. Be hardworking. Those things aren't going to change over time.
Yeah.
And I'd say this too: if you don't like the way the world looks, change it. Okay. I think some generations grow up and they wait too long to begin to create the world that they want to live in, and they're bitter toward the other generations for having, why did they set this up this way? When did capitalism become so important? The next generation didn't care so much about it. Like, well, all right, what do you want the world to be for your generation and for your kids' generation? And undertake to create that and communicate to people who are decision makers, who have political power, who have influence at companies. Let people know what you're looking for. All right, it's your world to inherit.
Yeah.
Us old folks are doing the best we can to create the world we think you want.
Right.
Don't make it a mystery. I mean, let us in.
Right. Absolutely. No, I appreciate you sharing that. All right. Last question I got for you is a fun one. I ask this to all the guests that are alumni. So if you could go back in time and speak at your graduation to your class, 1978, knowing what you know now, what would your commencement address be at that event?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a very interesting question. I mean, the first thing I would probably say is it's hard to believe that I'm up here making this speech because I didn't play sports. I was not an honor student.
Yeah.
I was kind of one of many who, like me, there was nothing really remarkable about my career at Cathedral Prep.
Yeah.
I learned a lot, but I was more quiet and reserved. But if I was talking to that entire class, I would tell them that the success you've enjoyed so far. If you want to continue to be successful, you need to develop and grow, and you need to change. And there's no guarantee that because you were the captain of the basketball team or the quarterback on the football team, that you're always going to be at that level of stature wherever you are. And so, learn into the next you.
Yeah.
If you're going to be successful, don't hang on to and cling to your previous success. Success is earned every day. It's going to be a challenge, and so you have to kind of continue to challenge yourself to be better,
right?
And to explore different things. My son is kind of a rare commodity. My middle son is wrapping up his 3-year stint in law school after a 6.5-year stint getting a doctorate in political science because he thought he wanted to go that route. But he is an anomaly in that he really has known since he was very young what he wanted to do, and he's pursuing it.
Yeah.
And he's very close to getting there. I think the other thing I would tell people at the commencement address is don't get laser focused on one thing right now. If you do, make it the first thing. It's not an end game.
Right.
And be ready to pivot, because everybody is great in good times.
Yeah.
But the great people are good in bad times. They figure out how to navigate those things, and that's what I would encourage people to do: is expect things to change. Take what's good forward with you, but you can't cling to your success now is not going to guarantee you tomorrow.
Yeah. So you're telling me in 1978 you guys didn't envision you'd be the CEO of your insurance at the time and all the decisions you made? Yeah, no.
I didn't know Zumagale was going to be the vice president or president at the bank. I didn't, didn't know Trisilla. I didn't see Trisilla in a robe, I'll tell you that. At least not a judge's robe.
Oh, man.
So it's funny how things evolve, though. And I mentioned this kind of reunion thing that we have going on.
Yeah.
It's just really cool to connect with everybody again. And we're all in different places, but there's, like I said, there's this common bond. It started at prep.
Yeah.
But it's the values we learned and that were reinforced at prep that kind of keeps us together.
Yeah. Somebody asked me what made prep so special for you, and it was never a single event or day or something. It was the brotherhood, and I explain it by saying it was every day, just being with your friends, developing those relationships, and now being on the other side of it, seeing how those relationships have grown and strengthened and continue to create that bond like you were speaking of. So, yeah. Well, Tim, really appreciate the time. All the wisdom and what you talked about today, a lot about values. And I think there was a lot of things that people at all different levels of careers and opportunities where they're at in life right now can really pull on. So just want to thank you for your time and being able to, answer these questions that we had for you today.
Yeah, Jimmy, I'm happy to do it, and I'm proud to reacquaint myself with Cathedral Prep a little bit more in these last couple of years, and I'm enjoying what I'm learning.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, and thank you, Matthew, for helping coordinate this all, and thanks again, Tim.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Rambler Podcast, where we're very fortunate to be able to have Mr. Tim NeCastro on as a guest, and wow, I'll tell you what, that was truly a masterclass in leadership right there. So thankful that Tim was able to share with us a lot of the values that have driven, his career moves that he's made through the years, and a lot of great things that we can learn through that episode of the podcast right there from him. I just want to give a little preview for the next episode of the Rambler Podcast. That will feature Mr. Bob Achille. Bob has been teaching at Cathedral Prep for 44 years now. So we're going to talk about his time having been a student, his time teaching at Prep, and then as well, this is the first year he's teaching boys and girls in the classroom. So we're going to talk to him about how this school year has been going for him. That episode of the podcast will be coming out on February 20th. So thanks so much again for listening. God bless, and roll Ramblers.